The echo of silence. It starts not with a bang, but with a whimper. A text message left on read. A phone call that rings out into the abyss of voicemail. A silence that is so profound, so absolute, it becomes a physical presence in the room. For Alex, that silence was a symphony of failure, each unspoken word a note in a composition of his own inadequacy. He sat on the edge of his unmade bed, the grey light of a Tuesday afternoon filtering through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows. Across the floor, in his hand, his phone was a leaden weight, a useless monument to a connection that was now severed. He had reread their last conversation 100 times, maybe more. His desperate, sprawling paragraphs of text, thick with pleas and promises, were met with her terse, sterile replies. Each one was a small, sharp blade twisting in his gut. I just need some space, Alex. I can't do this right now. Please, just stop. And then, nothing. The silence. Most guys never truly learn the lesson that was dawning on Alex. With the brutal clarity of a hangover, they believe in the power of words, in the currency of shared memories, in the emotional leverage of guilt. They think that if they can just articulate their pain perfectly, if they can remind her of the good times with enough poetic flourish, if they can make her feel the weight of what she's discarding, she will turn around. They think love is a logical negotiation, a debate to be won. So they beg. They plead. They remind her of the time they danced in the rain, the inside jokes, the promises whispered in the dark. They become amateur historians of their own failed state, excavating artifacts of a shared past in a desperate attempt to prove its value. Alex had done it all. He had sent her a playlist of their songs. He had written a long, rambling email that was part apology, part accusation, and part love letter. He had even shown up at her favorite coffee shop, a pathetic cliché, hoping for a chance encounter that would magically reset their narrative. Each attempt was met with a silence colder and more definitive than the last. Because here is the first truth that lodges itself in a man's throat like a shard of glass. Women don't come back to the man who begged, pleaded, or reminded her of everything they had. She doesn't return because of memories, nostalgia, or even guilt. These things might grant you a moment of pity, a sad, sympathetic smile, but they will never ever reignite the flames of respect and desire. She comes back when she feels something she can't explain. She comes back when something shifts deep in her psychology, a tectonic realignment of her perception of you. And that shift, the one that matters, the one that can actually bring her back into your orbit, doesn't happen because of what you say. It happens because of what you do. For Alex, the doing had, until now, been a frantic, panicked scramble to plug the hole she had left in his life. His actions were dictated by a gnawing fear of her absence. He checked her social media obsessively, a digital flagellant whipping himself with images of her smiling, living, breathing without him. Her online status turning from green to grey was a small death. A new photo was a catastrophe. He was a ghost haunting the edges of her life, and his invisibility was driving him mad. What he was failing to grasp was that this very behavior was the poison, not the antidote. He was reinforcing the exact reasons she had left. A woman won't come back to a man who made her his mission. She won't crave the guy who revolved his entire emotional weather around her mood swings. She might smile at the attention. She might enjoy the pedestal for a time, but she will not, under any circumstances, respect it. And without respect, a woman feels nothing worth returning to. Attraction cannot survive in the sterile environment of pity. Desire withers under the constant, needy glare of supplication. She left because the energy died. That was the core of it. The ugly, simple truth that hid beneath all the excuses and rationalizations. The polarity had vanished. Think of it as a magnetic field. Masculine and feminine energies are, at their best, opposing forces that create a powerful, irresistible pull. The masculine frame a man's sense of purpose, his direction, his unwavering core eyes, the North Pole. The feminine, energy-receptive, flowing, emotional is the South. When the two are in alignment, the attraction is immense. It's exciting, unpredictable, and deeply compelling. Alex's frame had not just bent, it had shattered. In his desperation to keep her, he had abandoned his own purpose. His ambitions, his hobbies, his friendships, they had all become secondary. To the grand project of making her happy, he had outsourced his emotional stability to her. If she was happy, he was happy. If she was upset, his world was plunged into chaos. He was no longer the steady, immovable North Star she had been drawn to. He was a weather vane, spinning frantically in the winds of her every emotion. She tested his frame, as women instinctively do, and found it to be hollow. She pushed, and it collapsed. And most men, in Alex's position, try to win her back by becoming an even more extreme version of the man she left. They tried to be sweeter, more available, more understanding. They double down on the very behaviors that killed the attraction in the first place. That's like throwing water on a dying fire and expecting it to reignite. You don't need more water, you need more fuel. You need air, you need a spark, you need fire, you need distance. You need the cold, calculated power of pulling away. Was the epiphany that finally struck Alex, not in a flash of divine inspiration, but in a moment of profound self-disgust. He was looking at his reflection in the dark screen of his phone, his face pale and drawn, his eyes hollow. He saw not a man in love, but a man in withdrawal, an addict. She was his drug, and he was chasing a high that was long gone. He didn't recognize the person staring back at him. The man she had fallen for, confident, ambitious, with a life of his own, was gone. In his place was this desperate, pleading shell, and in that moment, a switch flipped. It was a decision born not of strategy, but of survival. The declaration that you refused to be the man she walked away from, that guy, the one who sent the pathetic texts, the one who begged for another chance, he's gone, dead, buried, and what rises from his ashes is something she won't know how to deal with. The great disappearance. The first thing you must do is go silent, and this cannot be the timid, anxious silence of a man waiting by the phone. It is not the passive-aggressive silence designed to provoke a reaction. It is not a tactic, it is a paradigm shift. It is the silence of a man who is gone, vanished. A man who has more important things to do than babysit someone else's indecision. Alex deleted her number, not in a fit of pique, but with a strange, surgical calm. He blocked her on all social media platforms, not to make a statement, but to remove the temptation of his own weakness. He cut off the digital drip of information that had been feeding his obsession. He would no longer know if she was out with friends, if she was happy, if she was sad. Her life, once the central text of his existence, was now a closed book. This absence, this sudden and total withdrawal of energy, will speak, and it will speak with a thunderous roar that will drown out any last, desperate message you could ever have sent. It will echo in the spaces where your good morning texts used to be. It will resonate in the evenings where your calls once filled the time. She will feel it, not in her head, but in her gut, because women are not primarily logical processors. They are emotional sensors. They feel energy shifts with the same primal acuity that an animal senses a change in the weather. When your constant, pleading, available energy suddenly disappears from her world, it doesn't just create a void. It creates an emotional vacuum. At first, she pretends it doesn't matter. She might even feel a sense of relief. The annoying pings from the desperate ex have finally stopped. She is free. She acts unbothered, post a few extra stories on Instagram, laugh a little louder with her friends. She is performing her indifference, both for her audience and for herself. But deep down, in the quiet moments when the performance ends, a question will begin to whisper, why hasn't he checked in? It's a subtle dissonance. She was the one who ended it. She was the one who wanted space. But in the back of the feminine mind, the door should always remain just a little bit ajar. The man she left is supposed to remain an option, an emotional safety net. He is supposed to be there, pining, waiting, just in case her new path doesn't lead to the promised land she imagined. He is the reliable, predictable source of validation she can return to when she's bored, lonely, or tired of chasing excitement. When you vanish, you don't just close the door, you remove the entire doorway, you take away the safety net, you detonate the backup plan. And that sudden, unexpected loss of control is unsettling. Her world, which she had so confidently rearranged, begins to tilt on its axis while she is wrestling with this new, uncomfortable silence. Your work begins. You rebuild. This is the part of the journey that separates the men from the boys. The temptation is to sit in your room, marinating in your own misery, romanticizing the past, and waiting for the silence to work its magic. This is the fool's path. The silence is not the work. It is the space you have created for the work. Alex's journey back to himself began in the clanging, sweating, metallic heart of a gymnasium. It was an old-school place, smelling of rust and chalk and effort. He didn't go there to get a revenge body. He went there to find an honorable enemy. He went there to punish the iron. The first few weeks were agony. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned. Every rep was a battle against his own weakness. But there was a purity in that pain. It was a clean pain. A simple pain. Unlike the murky, complex pain of heartbreak, the pain of a heavy squat was straightforward. You either lifted the weight, or it crushed you. It was a direct confrontation with a physical limit, and pushing past that limit, day after day, began to forge something new inside him. He channeled all his frustration, all his anger, all his longing into the weights. Each deadlift was him pulling himself up from the floor of his despair. Each bench press was him pushing the weight of his own self-pity off his chest. He wasn't just building muscle, he was building discipline. He was learning to show up even when he didn't want to. He was teaching his body, and by extension his mind, that he was the one in control, not his fleeting emotions. The physical transformation was a byproduct, not the goal, but it was undeniable. The soft edges of his physique began to harden, his posture improved. He walked with a newfound sense of presence, his shoulders back, his gaze forward. When he caught his reflection now, he no longer saw the haunted, hollow-eyed man from a few months ago. He saw a man who was engaged in a fight, and winning, but the rebuilding couldn't just be physical. The man she left wasn't just physically soft, he was mentally and spiritually adrift. So Alex turned his attention inward. He stopped binge-watching meaningless shows to numb the pain and started reading. He began with the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. He read about accepting what he could not control, about finding strength in his own virtue, about the power of a disciplined mind. The words, thousands of years old, spoke directly to his modern pain. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Epictetus, he realized his happiness had been an external, entirely dependent on her. He had made a choice to give her that power, and he could now make a choice to take it back. He read about business, about finance, about history. He began studying a new language, not because he needed to, but because the act of learning, of forging new neural pathways, was a declaration of forward momentum. He was expanding his mind, making his internal world so vast and interesting that the space she once occupied became smaller and smaller, until it was just one small room in a sprawling mansion, instead of the entire house. The most crucial step in the rebuilding phase was the rediscovery of his purpose. Before her, Alex had been passionate about graphic design. He had a side project, a small freelance business that he had let wither as the relationship consumed his time and energy. He decided to revive it. He poured himself into his work with the same intensity he had brought to the gym. He stayed up late, not stalking her online, but refining his portfolio, sketching new ideas, contacting potential clients. He found that intoxicating state of flow, where time seems to disappear, where the self is forgotten in the act of creation. His work became his mission. It was something that was entirely his, something he could control, something that gave him a sense of value and accomplishment that was not contingent on anyone else's approval. And here's the twist, the beautiful, cosmic irony of it all. The more you do it for yourself, the more magnetic you become to her. Women are drawn to movement, to progress, to men who are not static. The man she left stays stuck, frozen in the amber of the past. But the man she now remembers, the man whose silence has become a source of unnerving curiosity, is moving, evolving, becoming. This transformation creates a powerful dissonance in her mind. It makes her question everything. The narrative she had constructed to justify the breakup, that he was needy, that the spark was gone, that he wasn't the one, begins to crumble. The man she sees now or hears about through the grapevine, which is even more powerful, doesn't fit that description. He is strong, focused, and thriving. This makes her feel something she hasn't felt in months, maybe years: insecurity, and that insecurity is the key. Because as long as she knows you are still emotionally tethered to her, she has all the power. As long as she believes she can snap her fingers and have you come running back, she is safe. She can explore her options, live her life, knowing that her safety net is securely in place. But the moment you remove that net, the moment she senses she can't predict you anymore, everything shifts. Now, she is no longer the prize, the one who is choosing. In a strange psychological reversal, she begins to feel like the one who got left behind. And women hate being left behind, even if they were the one to walk away. His forward momentum feels like an abandonment of her. You slam the door she wanted left open. You do it gently, quietly, without drama. But the sound of that silent click echoes in her mind, and it haunts her. If you truly want her to come back, you must stop trying to get her back. Let go of the outcome completely. Fall in love with yourself again. Fall in love with your solitude, with your path, with the man you are building in the fire of your own discipline. Let her see, from a distance, that you are not a man who is waiting. You are a man who is building. And if she ever wants to come back in, she is no longer applying for her old position. She is stepping into a new kingdom, with new rules, new standards, and a new king. A king she doesn't recognize. That mystery, that unknown, will drive her crazy. She will start asking herself the one question that signals the tide has turned. The one question that means the chase is about to begin. Did I underestimate him? Asterisk the quality of silence by now. You should understand something fundamental. The silence, in and of itself, is not the power. The power lies in the quality of your silence. If you disappear from her life but spend your days sitting in a dark room, overthinking every past mistake, obsessively stalking her social media through a friend's account, and anxiously waiting for her to notice you're gone, then you are not wielding power. You are practicing a form of passive desperation. That is not the silence of a king. It is the silence of a prisoner rattling his cage. That is pretending to detach while still being obsessively tethered to her shadow. Real detachment is internal. It is a profound and unshakable shift in your emotional center of gravity. It is when her name, popping up in conversation, no longer sends a jolt of anxiety through your stomach. It is when the thought of her with someone else is no longer a vision of torment, but a neutral fact, an event happening in a world that is no longer your primary concern. It is when her presence or absence ceases to be the controlling variable. In your own happiness, this level of detachment is not achieved overnight. It is earned. It is forged in the lonely hours at the gym, in the difficult pages of a book, in the focused pursuit of your own mission. It radiates from you like a low frequency hum. It's a quiet confidence, a stillness that is anything but passive. Women feel this strength, even from a distance. They sense it in your absence. They can taste it in the air. It is not the disappearance that truly gets to them. It is the evolution that is happening in the dark. And what's wild is this. The more truly detached you become, more magnetic you appear, because this detachment doesn't mean you are cold, bitter, or aloof. It means you are no longer available for dysfunction. It means you have raised your standards. You are no longer participating in the emotional circus. You are not responding to the low-investment breadcrumbs she will inevitably start to throw. You are not replying to that ambiguous "hey" sent at 2 a.m. You are not giving your time and energy to someone who ghosted you and now, feeling the chill of your absence, wants a quick hit of validation. That is the new standard. And when she feels that new standard, she won't know what to do at first. She will test it. From her perspective, the world has been turned upside down. The man who was once a predictable source of adoration has become an enigma. The silence, which she first welcomed as relief, has now stretched on for weeks, then months. It's no longer a pause, it's a statement. The grapevine, which she once paid little attention to, now brings her unsettling news. Mutual friends mention Alex. They talk about the new business he's pouring himself into. They mention how he's in incredible shape. They don't say it with pity, but with a note of admiration. He seems different, really good. She sees a photo. It's not a baited post with a cryptic sad boy caption. It's a genuine snapshot of his life. Him and his friends, laughing after a grueling workout. Him at a networking event, looking sharp and engaged. There's a light in his eyes she hasn't seen in a long time, a look of purpose that has nothing to do with her, and the spiral begins. She is consumed by the questions. What happened to the man who needed me? Where is the guy whose happiness I controlled? The answer is simple, and it is terrifying to her. He outgrew her absence. See, women don't come back because they miss your presence in a sentimental way. They come back because they miss your attention. They come back when that attention is no longer guaranteed, when the faucet of validation they once took for granted is suddenly turned off and the pipes have run dry. What most men never understand is this. Women crave attention, but they respect attachment. They are instinctively drawn to men who are capable of walking away and meaning it. Not as a tactic, not as a game, but as a lifestyle. That is what separates the high-value men from the emotional beggars. A high-value man doesn't chase, he builds, he doesn't pine. He replaces not necessarily with another woman, but he replaces the void with purpose, with growth, with his own life. And women feel that shift deep in their bones. The curiosity becomes a low-grade obsession. Her thumb hovers over his old contact number. She types out a message and deletes it. Then another. She is wrestling with her own ego and a growing, undeniable feeling of loss. The man who once chased her has suddenly stopped, and not because he's trying to provoke her, but because he genuinely no longer seems to seek her approval. That shift in energy is unexplainably powerful. It's not loud or dramatic, but it gets under her skin like nothing else. She is now the one left with unanswered questions. And women hate unanswered questions. Is he over me? Has he met someone else? Why doesn't he care anymore? And the more she wonders, the more she feels that void, the very same void she once inflicted upon him. The breadcrumb and the test then. It comes, the first contact. It will almost never be a direct, honest admission of fault or a plea for reconciliation. It will be a breadcrumb, a small low-risk feeler sent out into the void to see if the old Alex is still in there somewhere. Alex. It came on a Thursday evening. He was at his desk, deep in a design project, when his phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. Hey, saw that post about your design award. That's amazing. Congrats. He knew instantly who it was. The old Alex would have felt a surge of adrenaline, a jolt of triumphant validation. His fingers would have been flying across the screen. A desperate, eager reply materializing in seconds. Thank you so much. It's been a crazy journey. I've missed you. He would have fallen right back into the trap, signaling that all his power, all his newfound strength, was a fragile facade that could be shattered by a single text from her. But this was not the old Alex. He looked at the message. He observed it, the way a scientist observes a specimen under a microscope. He noted the timing, late evening. He noted the content, positive but non-committal. He noted the intent to gauge his reaction, to see if he would bite, and he did nothing. He put his phone down, turned it on silent, and went back to his work. He let the message sit there unanswered for hours. He went to the gym. He made dinner. He read a chapter of his book. He was not playing a game. He was living his life. His world no longer stopped when she decided to enter it. This is the hardest part. This is the final exam where most men fail. When she finally reaches out, they crumble. They jump to reply in 5 seconds flat. They break down and confess how much they've missed her. They instantly surrender the frame, the power, the respect they have spent months painstakingly building. Alex finally replied the next morning. His response was a masterpiece of calm detachment. Thanks, appreciate it. That was it. No questions about how she was doing, no emotional language, no exclamation points. It was polite, it was calm, and it was a brick wall. It was the kind of calm that says, I'm good either way. That calm is what hooks her, because most men react. Most men are still emotionally auditioning, trying to get picked. But his response communicated that he was the one who now picks. She was no longer the queen of his emotional kingdom. She was a guest in the lobby, and her behavior would determine if she was ever allowed past the velvet rope. Her reply came back almost instantly, a sign of her own anxiety. It's been a while. How have you been? He saw the hook, the invitation to open up, to talk about his feelings, to revert to the old dynamic. He didn't take the bait. He waited another hour, been busy with work, but can't complain. Hope you're well? Again, polite, closed. He gave her nothing to work with, no emotional handhold to grab onto. He was making her feel his detachment, not his anger or his coldness. It was a calm, impenetrable strength. This wasn't a trick. It wasn't a manipulation. It was the realignment of the masculine-feminine polarity. It brought back the tension, the uncertainty, the intrigue that his neediness had destroyed. It reminded her, in no uncertain terms, that his attention and validation were no longer hers by default. They had to be earned, and that is what flips the script. Because deep down, women want to feel they have captured a man, not that he simply threw himself at their feet. They want the thrill of the pursuit, too, but they can't feel that thrill if you are always available, always present, always one text away. You want her to come back. You must make her feel viscerally what it is like to not have you fully, completely. No breadcrumbs, no maybe later. Just a powerful, purposeful absence. And when she finally circles back, because trust me, if you have truly done the work, she will. You do not go back to how things were. You do not become her emotional doormat again. You set the tone, you set the pace, you make her work to regain access. The new kingdom. The mistake men make after a woman returns is thinking the work is done. They see her reappearance as the finish line. They assume the silence was the tool, and now that she's back, it's back to business as usual. This is a fatal error. Her coming back is not the endgame. It is the beginning of a new dynamic. It is the signing of a new contract, the entrance into a new kingdom, and the terms are now yours to set. Over the next few weeks, she continued to test him. She would flirt and then go cold. She would ask to meet up and then have a last-minute excuse. She was retesting his frame, trying to see if the new, strong version of him was real or just an act. Women retest to see if the man can be trusted, to lead, to see if he will crumble under pressure and revert to his old, weaker self. Alex did not flinch. He did not bite. He did not step back into her maze. When she asked to meet up, he didn't jump at the chance. He would reply, "My week is packed, but I might be free next Tuesday for an hour." He put her on his schedule, not the other way around. He kept their first meeting short, in a public place, and he ended it first. He led the interaction with a calm, dominant energy. He listened more than he spoke. He was observing her, qualifying her. He was no longer the emotionally reactive boy who flinched at her silence. He had mastered the art of stillness. He had built a life that no longer orbited her moods. That was his power. And when she felt that power, she began to respect him, even if she never said it out loud. She felt it in her body. That calm dominance, that emotional leadership, that energy that says, "I don't need you to come back. But if you do, you come correct." This isn't about revenge. It is about reclaiming your masculinity from the grip of emotional dependence. Every time you chase, you weaken your frame. Every time you beg, you erode your power. But when you pull away, not to manipulate, but to elevate, you strengthen yourself. You reconnect with your purpose, and that purpose becomes your new source of attraction. That is what women truly respond to. Not the man begging for her return, but the man who returned to himself. Her actions began to speak louder than her words ever could. She texted more carefully. She stopped playing games. She started asking about his life, his goals. She was trying to insert herself back into his life, this time not as the center of it, but as someone worthy of being in it, and his job was to observe, to watch, to stay composed. Because the man who has mastered detachment never loses control just because an old flame he keeps his emotions in check. He leads with clarity, and he makes sure that if she wants access again, it comes with standards, not sympathy. That if she proves she is worthy of another chance, if she shows genuine growth, consistency, and accountability, then maybe you let her back in. But by then the decision will not come from desperation. It will come from a place of strength, of discernment, of the unwavering understanding that you are the gatekeeper now. The ultimate victory. Let me be real with you. Some women won't come back, and that is still a win. Sometimes the greatest blessing is the silence that stays. The woman who walks away and never returns is the one who was never truly aligned with your purpose. She was part of the lesson, not the destination. When you can accept that without an ounce of bitterness, you ascend. You stop looking for closure from an outside source. You stop romanticizing a past that was flawed. You stop trying to rewrite a story that has already ended. And in that acceptance, in that radical self-sufficiency, you make space for someone new. Someone who won't need to lose you to see your value. But she will only show up once you have truly stopped waiting for the old story to resume. The journey was never about getting her back. It was about getting you back. The version of you that existed before you handed away your power, before you based your self-worth on her validation, before you made her the sun in your solar system. That version of you, the weak, reactive version, is gone. He died the day she stopped appreciating him. What stands in his place is a man with standards, a man with purpose, a man with emotional discipline. That is the man she respects. That is the man she dreams about when she lays in bed at night next to someone safe and boring who doesn't challenge her. That is the man who lives rent-free in her mind, not because he begged for a spot, but because he became so whole that his absence was impossible to ignore. It's wild how the tables turn. The guy she once ignored becomes the man she now stalks. Online, the man she once ghosted becomes the one she can't get a reply from. And that shift doesn't happen because you played a game right. It happens because you became right, aligned, focused, built from the ground up. In a world full of needy men, the one who radiates calm detachment becomes king. Your stillness is the storm. Her return is just the echo of that storm finally reaching her heart. So if you want her back, 100%, you have to mean everything you have learned. You have to be willing to let her go, not just physically, but emotionally. You have to unhook your identity from her presence and anchor it into something far deeper, your own masculine core. She comes back when you are no longer looking for her. That is when she starts looking for you. That is when she sees the man she failed to appreciate, and that is when she realizes, with a chilling certainty, that she might not get another chance. And if she does get that chance, you let her earn it, day by day, action by action. But if she doesn't, you smile, you breathe, and you keep walking, because the goal was never to win her. It was to win yourself, and now that you have nothing and no one can ever take that away from you, your emotions are no longer running the show. Your standards are, and standards are the impenetrable filter between pain and peace. They are the boundary between letting her back into your castle or leaving her exactly where she left you, outside the walls of the kingdom you built for yourself. You no longer let love blind you. You let respect guide you. And if she brings anything less than her absolute best, you let her go swiftly, silently, because your peace is more important than her presence. That is the ultimate power.